Okay, so let's begin with the class. I'll quickly introduce myself to all of you. So, this is Dr. Mitashra Tripathi. I am an educator. I had been teaching business communication and soft skills development for the last 12 years now to students from across all the universities and disciplines. Besides that, I am also a corporate trainer, and I had been training managers and executives from industries and corporates. Besides teaching and training, I'm also into research. So I do research from interdisciplinary subjects, and most of them are already published. And I'm looking forward to publish even more. So let's begin. Um, the subject is Introduction to New Literatures in English. And because this is day one, we will just keep it to introduction part only. Post the Yeah, may I request all of you to be muted, please? Yeah, thank you so much. So, can we just have a quick confirmation if I'm audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am, you are. And
Okay,
that's
thank you
very
so
nice
much.
to hear from you, ma'am.
Okay, good to know you, Avni. Okay, Rachel, you raised hands. Was it for something you want to speak?
No, no, not.
Okay, okay, fine, so fine. Fine, let's begin then. So, today is day one, and we will start with the introduction to new literatures in English. Now, new literatures in English refer to all those kinds of literary works which are written in English by authors from regions outside the traditional English speaking countries. Now, if I speak about the countries outside the traditional English speaking countries, I mean by the countries um, who are known as those colonized or once colonized and non Western. Now, this field encompasses literature from Africa. Lena, you raised hand for something.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
I wanted to ask if there will be any PDF or any textual material that would be provided after this session.
Yeah, definitely. I'll ask to the concerned person, and maybe I'll just um, communicate to that. Okay,
Okay,
I'll
ma'am.
keep it in mind. Yeah, yeah.
Ma'am, can you please share it right now so that we can like because it
Uh,
can get a little.
okay, I got your point, but since I'm not preparing any PPT right now, I have to make all those points or notes that I'll be speaking to you right now. And at the end of the class, I'll be sharing with you after talking to the right person, because I was not given any instruction on sharing the notes prior to. Otherwise, I would have done that. So right now, also, uh, I hope that will be okay.
Yes, ma'am. Completely fine. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So yeah, speaking again, so all those countries which were once colonized and were non-Western. Now these countries are Africa, Caribbean, South Asia, some parts of Australia, and other regions where English serves only a prominent medium of expression and not the first language. The study of these literature now, why they are so different and why it is connected to the new literatures in English, because they offer insights into the diverse cultural, social, and political contexts that have shaped them till date. This literary field, we are talking about the new literature in English, this literary field emerged in the later half of the 20th century only as a response to the cultural and historical transformation that followed the decolonization process. Now, let's understand in details what these literatures provide, what perspective these literatures provide actually. Now, new literatures in English, they provide fresh and unique perspectives that reflect complexities of identity, power, and resistance in a post colonial world. Now, a little bit of history I would want to give you on the new literatures in English. Now, the history of new literatures of English is deeply rooted in the colonial experiences. Try to understand this point, and maybe when I'll give you examples, when I discuss with you chapters or novels, you'll come to know about it more in a depth. So, during the colonial era, the British Empire, along with other European powers, imposed English as a language of administration. This is a common belief, we all know that. administration, education, high culture, because they were dominating. So they wanted English to be imposed as a language. Now this imposition sometimes led to suppression and marginalization of indigenous language. What is indigenous language or cultures? Generally those languages which are genuine and which have their own, tradition or culture to be followed. So sometimes what happens, when although they are genuine and they have their own uniqueness in them, however they were suppressed because they were dominated by the European powers. Now, what happened then in Africa or the African countries? The introduction of English literature that actually created a complex relationship between indigenous traditions and European literary forms. Some of the writers, they began to adopt English while integrating elements, of their native cultures, and they could be able to create also a unique blend that reflected Africa's diverse heritage. So they took it very positively. This was one of the impact of the literary tradition. What happened in South Asia? In South Asia, literature mirrored the region's cultural and political tensions, especially during the period leading up to independence. Writers from this region use English to express the multifaceted experiences of colonialism, cultural hybridity, and the struggle for identity. Of course, when you're dominated, by a superpower, sometimes you get so suppressed you lose your identity. So authors started writing using this language, English, and they started, proving their identity to people and the world. What happened in Caribbean? The Caribbean literary tradition emerged from a similar context of colonial imposition, where writers, they often had issues with the race or the identity. They also started expressing themselves. This happened when gradually, the colonialism and its legacy started to involve. In post-colonial literature and its emergence, if we talk about that, so gradually the colonial rule came to an end. So writers from formerly colonial nations began to explore themes related to their newfound independence. Now they're feeling, empowered. Now they want to write more about it. Now this gave rise to what is known today as post-colonial literature. Now what does this deals with? It deals with identity formation. Post-colonial literature frequently explores the struggle to forge a national or a cultural identity in the wake of colonial rule. This includes efforts to reclaim indigenous traditions and navigate the complexities of cultural hybridity, where elements of both colonial and indigenous cultures merge together to create something new, to create a hybrid identity. This identity formation was possible. Now, if you have heard about Chinua's Achibes, he has written the book Things Falls Apart. This is a classic example of the identity formation that I was talking a bit ago. This particular book, it examines the impact of British colonialism on the Igbo society in Nigeria, and it highlights the tensions between what used to be in the traditional values and how the forces of change brought by the colonial rule. Post colonial writers also often challenge the stereotypes and the misrepresentations perpetuated by the colonial literature. By providing more nuanced and authentic portrayals of their society, these writers started resisting the colonial narrative that often depicted colonized people as inferior, as uncivilized. Have you heard about Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children? If you have, you will. If you have read it, you would understand how the narrative of Indian independence is also intertwined by the personal and national history of its protagonist, thereby offering a counter narrative. So there are numerous examples that we will be discussing today, and gradually we will be seeing how in the upcoming classes every bit of a novel, be it a novel, be it a drama, how something new has, and how they have been empowered by, coming up with their identity. So that we will be discussing now. This happened that the blending of different cultural influences resulted from the colonial encounters is one of the reoccurring theme in new literatures in English. Everyone started to follow the same identity, that everybody happened to follow this particular theme. Now yes. Yes, Anjali. Anjali, you were saying something? Yes, please. Anjali, you raised hands. I see Keshav also raising hand. You have anything to say?
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Keshav.
Ma'am, actually, I am not in there in any WhatsApp group, so I request if you add me in the WhatsApp group so that I will also able to get the materials what you share.
Okay,
And,
I'll just note down all your concerns and I will communicate the same to the coordinator.
yes, sir. Sir, also I have told this to the previous faculty, but still I am not added. So it's my
Still you're
humble
not added.
request. So yes, sir. So,
Okay, I'll
ma'am,
keep that
please
in
add
mind.
me.
I'll keep that in mind. Maybe will when we'll break for a tea or a water, maybe after some time, I'll quickly talk with the coordinator.
Okay, so ma'am, now in the chat box, I will give you my number. Means I will message that, and please note it and add me.
Definitely.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So where were we? I would request all of you, if you have any concerns, right, in the middle of, because we are going with the flow and it comes very naturally. So if you have any concerns, please note that there in the chat box, and we will get back.
मैम इग्नू का लास्ट डेट ऑफ असाइनमेंट
Uh, Anjali, I didn't get you. Would you repeat it?
लास्ट डेट ऑफ असाइनमेंट सबमिट इग्नू
Oh, okay. I'm not really aware of that. I just wanted to tell all of you, if you have questions regarding assignment or numbers not getting connected to the WhatsApp group, all your concerns, I would request all of you to please write down in the message in the text box. Okay.
प्लीज
So yeah.
प्लीज
So we'll
सेंड
not.
मी
Yes,
बाय
please.
नंबर
I don't get it, Anjali.
सेंड मी मोबाइल नंबर मैम
No, no, no. I'm talking about here because all the messages are being recorded. So
यस
this
मैम
will, yes, here in the screen, here in Google Meet.
ओके 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 मैम
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's not break the flow.
मैम
I would. Yes, please.
इग्नू असाइनमेंट कब तक जमा हो सकता है वो लास्ट डेट
Anjali,
ऑफ
मुझे नहीं पता मैं, that's what I'm saying, that any concerns you have, you may please write it down. कुछ भी concerns हो ना regarding assignment का हो गया, या
जी
जैसे numbers किसी का ऐड नहीं हो रहा है, तो
जी
आप ये जो है messages जो record हो रहे हैं,
जी
उसमें आप यहाँ पे mention कर दीजिए, तो मुझे याद रहेगा, तो मैं right person से बात करके I'll get back to you.
ओके ओके मैम थैंक यू
Yeah.
मैम थैंक
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Requesting all to mute, please. अंजलि, आप म्यूट कर सकते हो.
यू ओके मैम ओके मैम
Thank you. Okay, thank you then. So I, okay, where were we? See, that's what happens, when the flow of teaching and learning uh, uh, get hindered. So please try to put all your important messages in the text box, and so that we don't break with the flow. Okay. Yeah. So where was I? Yeah, I think I was giving one example of the yes, I think Salman Rushdie's example I was giving, Midnight's Children. If you have read it, you would really understand, and how the narrative of Indian independence is actually connected to the personal and national history of the main character. So that is what it talks about. Now, what happens is the blending of different cultural influences, which is resulting from colonial encounters, is a reoccurring theme. That's what I was talking about. And I was almost about to give you an example of Omeros, which is written by Derek Walcott. We will be reading Derek Walcott, but not Omeros. We will be reading another, you know, classic example that he has been providing regarding the same new literatures in English. But here I'm taking Omeros so that all of you are getting an idea how things are developing. So there is an interplay between African, European, and Caribbean influences in that entire book of Derek Walcott, Omeros, and that illustrates the cultural hybridity that characterizes the Caribbean experiences. So now, if we go a little deeper into what can be the possible significance of new literatures in English, you would come to know that actually there has been a expansion in literary horizon. By expansion of literary horizon, I mean that they have expanded new literatures in English. They have expanded our basic understanding of global literary traditions by including voices from regions that were previously overlooked sometimes or marginalized. Now these literatures offer fresh perspective on universal themes such as love, sometimes power, sometimes conflict, and they're all enriched by the unique cultural contexts. So because these are new, so they are providing fresh perspectives. Now you would come to know by the write-ups or by whatever you know books they will be presenting or they are writing. You will come to know there are so many voices of diversity. For example, writers from Africa, Asia, you name Caribbean and other regions, they bring their diverse experience and cultural backgrounds. You come to know exactly how their culture had been since so long been overlooked, and they're using or implementing English, and they're trying to bring up something new, and this is so fresh to the minds of the readers. Now, this diversity enriches the literary landscape. Not only that, but also it offers readers fresh insights in so many different ways of life, thought processes, views, mindsets, opinion. So it completely expands. That's what I'm saying, that it completely expands the understanding of the general people who will be, or the readers who will be trying to understand what backgrounds they were having. Now, very interesting that we will be studying maybe tomorrow, grain of wheat, that we will be studying tomorrow. So this particular write up by Guviva Thingwo, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the grain a grain of wheat, it is actually a challenge to the mind of the readers, because readers are supposed to reconsider which is already established narrative, and they are going to embarrass uh, a, 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 s- a, a more inclusive understanding of literature. So, although there are challenging dominant canons, now this inclusion of new literature in English challenges the dominance of Western literary canons also. Yes, Anjali, you raised hands again. Yes, please. Anjali, you want to say something? Okay, okay, okay. So that's what So um, yes, the inclusion I was talking about, perhaps. Yes, the inclusion of these write ups, and they highlight so much from the diverse regions, scholars, readers, they get all a very comprehensive view of what had been existing but still not been into picture. So that is how why this is called as a fresh perspectives. Gradually, as we proceed with each day, we would come to know the viewpoints of the writers and how they had been struggling so hard to show their identification. And it was only possible towards, like I told you in the introduction part, that 20th century only how they were able to come up to the forefront. Now, if we talk about the themes or the issues of generally if of new literatures in English, if we talk about the prominent themes or issues, the first thing is self representation, because they had been struggling so hard to present themselves before the world. So identity and self representation is one of the prominent theme, and also one of the issue. uh, Exploration of the identity. For this reason, the authors often grapple with questions of personal and collective identity in the context of post colonial realities. Now this process of reclaiming and asserting indigenous cultural practices and values is a common theme. Writers seek to reconnect with their cultural roots and challenge their identities that occurred during colonization. Now, in the book of Things Fall Apart, the protagonist, Okonkwo, This is one of the book I was just talking about a little ago, written by, if I correctly remember, give me a second. Yes, Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. Yes. So now, if we talk about that particular book, the protagonist Okonkwo struggle to maintain his own cultural identity in the face of colonial influence highlights the tension between tradition that had been following up since so long and the changes that occurred. So, post colonial identity involves the negotiation of identity in the aftermath of colonial rule, including the impact of colonial legacies on contemporary societies. This theme often includes the exploration of, like I mentioned earlier, hybridity, where elements of both colonized and colonizers' cultures coexist. There is also one good theme of cultural interaction. If we're talking about cultural hybridity, it's this concept which refers to the blending of different cultural elements, which is resulting from historical interactions. Now, the use of language, English, is the combination with indigenous language, which often results in unique linguistic forms and style. This linguistic hybridity reflects the complex cultural interactions in post colonial contexts. For example, the works of, if I remember that, the works of Kamau Brathwaite, okay, he often incorporates Caribbean Creole alongside English, creating a linguistic tapestry that reflects the region's diverse cultural heritage. The adaptation of traditional literary genres and structures to reflect diverse cultural influences is another aspect of, again, this hybridity part. Post colonial writers often experiment with form and genres to create works that challenge conventional literary norms. Besides hybridity or cultural interaction, besides cultural, self representation, another prominent theme is resistance and empowerment. Literature in formerly colonized countries often serves as a means of resistance and empowerment. Writers use their work to not only challenge colonial and post colonial injustice, but also advocate for social change and they preserve their cultural identities. Literature often serves as a tool, for critiquing political systems and advocating for justice. Post-colonial writers frequently used to address this issue of political oppression, corruption, and social inequality. Now, in the book Petals of Blood, this is another book written by, um, again, Thingos. Petals of Blood is a powerful critique of post-colonial Kenya's political and economic system that highlights the ongoing struggles for justice and equality. You talk about social empowerment, literature can also promote social empowerment by addressing social issues and promoting cultural pride. Post colonial writers often use their work to inspire a sense of pride in indigenous cultures and to advocate for the rights of marginalized communities. Cracking India, which is written by Bapshi Sidhwa, we will be studying one more book of Bapshi Sidhwa, uh, the narrative which who explores the social impact of partition on women and minorities, shedding light on the resilience and the strength that these communities had been facing, and there was a historical trauma to it. So these are some of the major prominent themes and issues that we will be focusing in some of the plays or novels in the upcoming days. Now, I would want all of you to listen carefully to this case study from Things Fall Apart. So you'll get an idea about how the themes and the issues had been prominently explored. So this is Chinua's Achebe's Things Fall Apart, and it is a novel. It is a seminal work of African literature, and it reflects the impact of colonialism on traditional Igbo society. We'll do case studies one by one. So let's start first with this one particular case study first. Let's talk about a bit brief biographical background of this influential author. This is Chinua Achebe, and he was widely regarded as the father of African literature in English. He was born in Nigeria, and he was educated in English and Igbo literature. And his work has profoundly influenced the portrayal of African societies in literature. One of his major work, which was written in 1958, was Things Fall Apart. This is was set in pre-colonial Nigeria, and it focused on the life of Okonkwo, a respected leader in the Igbo community. The novel portrays the impact of British colonialism and Christian missionaries on traditional Igbo society, depicting the resulting cultural and social upheaval. Now, if we talk about the major theme, exactly, it reflects the same cultural conflict. This is the major theme, cultural conflict, the clash between the traditional Igbo customs and colonial forces, which is a central to the novel. Achibes illustrates the complexity of cultural interactions and the consequences of colonial rule on indigenous societies. Now, the second theme, besides cultural conflict, which was identified, was again identity and chain. This also tells about the struggle. Okonkwo's, the protagonist, struggle to maintain his cultural identity amidst the encroaching colonial influence, which reflects broader themes of resistance and adaptation. Talking about tradition versus modernity as another theme, the novel explores the tension between traditional values and modern influences, highlighting the challenges faced by individuals and communities during that period of time. If you focus on the literary technique of this case study, one that I'm talking about, Achibe's Things Fall Apart, it's about the oral tradition. Achibes incorporates Igbo's oral storytelling techniques, which includes proverbs, folk tales to enrich the narrative and provide authenticity to the cultural representations. They used to just simply go around, speak, stories about their culture, and this requires a lot of skill sets, which Achibe has incorporated in his novel. The novel also employs a third person narrator, which offers insights into multiple perspectives and creating a comprehensive view of the societal changes that has been occurring before them. Now, few lines, if I can just share as a case study from the book, um, Things Fall Apart, you'll come to know exactly what exactly Achibe wants to promote. So there was this line, page number 13 of that book. The white man is very clever. He came quietly and peacefully with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart. If you understand each of these lines capture the central theme of the cultural clash in Things Fall Apart. Okay. Now Achieve reflects on the impact of European colonization and Christian missionary efforts on the traditional Igbo society. The knife here, the word which is used here, metaphorically represents the disruption of Igbo customs and social structures, which is caused by colonial interventions. Achibe uses this imagery to illustrate the deep divide between the traditional African values and the new colonial influences that led to societal fragmentation. Achibe also promotes the idea of preserving cultural identity and critiques the destructive impact of colonialism on indigenous societies. So it's basically a fight between the two, while the indigenous societies claiming their self representation or identity of their culture. Now, if you I will read the line again, and let's try to understand the deep meaning which is intact with it. The white man is very clever. He came quietly and peacefully with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart. If you focus on these lines again, the lines emphasize the loss of cohesion within the community and the adverse effects of the external influences on traditional ways of life. How beautifully the novel has been written and metaphorically used. So we have to understand the concept by delving deep into the lines. So I'm just trying to speak about this particular novel as a case study, so you understand that what exactly the entire new literatures of English they promote. So that is what uh, we'll go and we'll read some more lines also. The ill-fated lad was called Ikimefuna. He was a boy of 15, handsome and tall. He had come to the village, and after being brought from a neighboring village as part of the village yearly custom of offering a human sacrifice. I'll read it again. The ill fated lad was called Ikimefuna. He was a boy of 15, handsome and tall. He had come to the village after being brought from a neighboring village as part of the village yearly custom of offering a human sacrifice. Think of what timing and think of what custom that the village is following. This passage introduces Ikimefuna as an ill fated lad, as a character who plays a very crucial role in the entire narrative. Now, the author uses this description to set up the cultural practices of the Igbo people and the concept of sacrifice as part of their traditional customs. Ikimefuna's fate becomes the pivotal point in the story, illustrating the conflict between traditional practices and the changes brought by colonial forces. The author also highlights the complexity of Igbo customs of human sacrifices. It's such a complex custom and the impact of external influences on these traditions. By presenting the cultural context and the character's fate, Achibes promote an understanding of how colonialism disrupts established social norms. I'll talk about one more line. Okonkwo ruled his household with a heavy hand. His wives, especially the youngest, lived in a perpetual fear of his fiery temper, and so did his children. I'll read one more time. Okonkwo ruled his household with a heavy hand. His wives, especially the youngest, lived in a perpetual fear of his fiery temper, and so did his children. If you look at the use of language here, his household, heavy hand, the first letters are all starting with H. So, this is a very beautiful way of writing one of the devices, literary devices that has been used. Also, perpetual fury of his fiery temper. Perpetual fear of his fiery temper. For the consonants. So that is the style that has been used here. So this passage provides insight into Okonkwo's character and his approach to leadership and family life. If you have heard it properly, you would understand his wives, especially the youngest. So the authoritarian figure, which showcases the theme of masculinity by marrying more than one. So that is how they had been presented. So that shows his approach towards leadership and family life. So Achibes depicts Okonkwo as a stern and an authoritarian figure, which reflects his internal struggle with personal insecurities and social expectations. This depiction that also underscores the broader theme of masculinity and power within the Igbo community. So the author explores the theme of power here, authority, and personal insecurity. Generally, you show power to people when you believe that you are powerful, but actually you are the most insecure person. So that is how beautifully they have explained here. By portraying Okonkwo's harshness, Achibe critiques the rigid adherence to traditional values and the impact of such attitude on relationships and social stability. This is uh, one of the write up. And there is one more summary I would want to talk about. This is again a novel which is a sequel to Things Fall Apart, and this is written in 1960. Okay, and the novel is No Longer at Ease, which follows a story of Obai Okonkwo, who's a grandson, Okonkwo's grandson, who returns to Nigeria after studying in England. The novel explores the challenges of reconciling Western education with traditional African values. Here, the main character is Obis, who is the grandson of Okonkwo. Obi's experiences highlight the difficulties faced by individuals caught between two cultures, reflecting the broader issues of post colonial identity and dislocation. Also, there is, besides the cultural alienation, there is another theme which is involved in this sequel, is about corruption and modernity. The novel critiques the corruption and ethical dilemmas which arises from modern influences and the pressure of post-colonial governance. Now I'll just read one more line from the sequel of Things Fall Apart. I was not born into the world to follow the man who is ahead of me, but to create a new path for myself, even if it means stepping away from the family. I'll repeat. I was not born into the world to follow the man who is ahead of me. If you just focus on the line, it is so powerful that tells the concept of self representation, how you as an individual have your own presentation, and how you are in fact uh, you know trying to showcase your own identity amongst the rest. So but to create a new path for myself, and even if it means stepping away from the familiar, such a rebellious attitude. This line showcases that the protagonist Obi, okay, the struggle with the cultural and personal identity as he returns from studying in England. So the tension between traditional values and modern influences, by this time things have changed a lot. There was traditional values, now there are modern influences, which is evident, and in his desire to forge his own path, which often conflicts with social expectations. Here the author is trying to highlight the theme of individualism versus tradition, promoting the notion of self determination and the challenge of balancing modernity with cultural heritage. If you focus on the work, the author's work has been really instrumental in shaping the field of African literature and post colonial studies by offering a portrayal of African societies and challenging colonial stereotypes. Just hold on for a while, please. Yes, I had a call, so sorry for that. So, uh, where was I? So, I think I was, yeah, I was giving an example uh, of OBs. Yes, I remember OBs. OB as he returns from England from studying. So, what kind of tension was between the traditional values and the modern influences, which is clearly evident as he is setting himself out for conflict with the social expectations. So here the author highlights the theme of um, his own individualism, his own personality, versus the tradition. And this one promotes the idea of self determination and the challenge of balancing modernity with cultural heritage. Now, here the author's work actually is just one of the African writers that we are taking as case study. So this will set an example of how the other authors also under African literature had been following the same tradition or the same kind of portrayal of their own identity and cultural fight that they would want to get identified for. So this is on one of the writers that we just talked about as a first case study, Chinua Achebe. We talked about Things Fall Apart, which was written in 1958, and the sequel that was written in 1960. Now there is one more writer, Salman Rushdie, who is a British Indian author. I'm sure you all might have heard about him, and is known as an author for his innovative use of realism and his exploration of themes related again to identity, migration, and post-colonialism. His writings often combines historical and contemporary elements, reflecting the complexities of global culture. Most of his works, or the famous work if I talk about, is Midnight Children, and it also has some themes we discuss about the expert. Um, would you want to take a break? Can we have some water tea break? Can we take a break?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Fine. We can take a break for 10-15 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, can we begin? Are you all there? Can we begin? Can you please confirm if you're there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's begin then. So, in today's class, just before the break, we were trying to discuss on the introduction part of new literature, and I was trying to give you some examples where you come to know about the writer or the style or the theme or the issues or what exactly it is all about through various write-ups. And I was choosing some excerpts also from the chapters or the plays, and I was trying to talk about the literary form or the adaptation or what aspect they were talking about. So for that reason, I took a case study of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, and we also talked about the sequel of it. And just before the break, I gave you an example of Salman Rushdie. We will continue with right now the second case study of Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children. Now, again, I'll just quickly brief the biographical background of Salman Rushdie, who is a British Indian author, and he is mostly known or understood for how he explores themes which is connected to identity and post-colonialism again. Now, most of his write-ups are they often speak about the historical and the contemporary elements which clearly reflects the complexities of the global culture. His his most important work, if uh, um, if uh, if we may discuss on that, is Midnight Children, which was written in 1981. A quick summary of Midnight Children is, it's a landmark novel that follows the life of Salim Sinai, born at the moment of India's independence. The novel blends historical events with the magical realism, which is the major concept of Rushdie, while Salim's personal story to explore the broader political and social transformation in post-colonial India. Some of the themes, if you just focus on, are again history and magic together. The novel uses magical realism to intertwine individual and national histories, reflecting the surreal nature of post colonial experiences. Salim's life parallels the political upheavals of India, which explores themes of personal and collective identity amidst historical change. So, this is another theme, the identity and the transmission part. The novel serves as an allegory for the political and social struggles faced by post colonial India, critiquing both colonial legacies and contemporary issues. Now, this becomes the political allegory as a theme. Magical realism happens to be the most unparalleled literary technique that Rushdie uses, which allows him to blend reality and fantasy, creating a narrative that reflects the complexities of both historical and cultural experiences. This novel employs a very narrative structure reflecting the fragmented nature of history and memory. If you focus on few of the lines, excerpts from the book, I was born in the midnight hour as India awoke to freedom, and my entire existence has been tied to the fate of my country. Every significant event in my life is mirrored in the events of India. I'll repeat. I was born in the midnight hour as India awoke to freedom, and my entire existence has been tied to the fate of my country. Every significant event in my life is mirrored in the events of India. Now, if you focus on this line, this highlights the central theme of the novel of intervening the personal and the national histories. Salim Sinai, who is actually the protagonist, is born at the exact moment of India's independence, symbolizing the deep connection between his life and the nation's fate. Rusty very calmly uses this concept of synchronicities to explore the idea that individual destinies are shaped by larger historical and political forces. Rushdie, in fact, promotes the concept of this magical realism and the idea that personal and national histories are deeply interconnected. Now, this particular line also reflects the novel's exploration of how historical events influence individual lives and vice versa, promoting a narrative that combines political and personal dimensions. There is one more line. In the land of my birth, I'm not a hero, but a living symbol of the country's most tumultuous period. My life is intertwined with the fate of my people. Now, this line reflects Salim Sinai's awareness of his symbolic role in the history of India. Rushdie emphasizes the connection between Salim's personal experiences and the larger historical political context. The protagonist's life mirrors the tumultuous changes in the nation, illustrating how individual identities are shaped by national events. Rushdie promotes the idea of personal identity being deeply connected with national history. Through Salim Sinai's character, he illustrates how individual lives can serve as microcosmos of broader historical and political shifts. There is one more line, very famous one. We are all immigrants in this world, constantly searching for a place to call home. My own journey reflects the universal quest for belongingness. We are all immigrants in this world, constantly searching for a place to call home. My own journey reflects the universal quest for belongingness. Now, this particular passage speaks to the theme of displacement and the search for identity. Rushdie uses the idea of immigration and the quest for home to explore broader existential themes. This reflects the experiences of many characters in the novel who grapple with issues of identity and belonging in a globalized world. Rushdie addresses themes of migration, identity, belongingness, emphasizing the universal nature of these experiences. By relating personal struggles to a broader context, Rushdie promotes an understanding of the quest for home as a common human experiences. So this was from Midnight's Children. One of his another famous book was Satanic Verses, which was written in 1988. This is a very controversial novel that tells the story of two Indian expatriates who undergo a series of fantastical and surreal experiences. Now, the novel explores the themes of religious faith, cultural identity, and the nature of storytelling. Now, here the major theme of Satanic Verses is the religious critic, which the novel depicts, the religious themes and the figures, which leads to significant controversy and debate. Yes, now this novel is Satanic Verses, written in 1988. Yeah. So the theme here is this raises question about the role of literature in addressing sensitive topics. There is again identity and displacement here also. The characters' experiences highlights the challenges of navigating both cultural and religious identities in a globalized world. The if you focus on the literary techniques, most of the writings, the literary techniques are intertextuality kind of intertextuality based, which frequently engages with various literary and religious texts that creates a rich tapestry of references and allusions. The novel also employs literary techniques of postmodernism, such as metafiction, to explore the nature of storytelling and representation. A beautiful line from the book is: stories are not just about what happens, but about what could happen. What a beautiful concept the writer wants to speak here. Stories are not just about what happens, but about what could happen. They are dreams made tangible, reflections of what we hope and fear. This line clearly explores the theme of storytelling as a reflection of human desires and anxieties. Rushdie understands this and emphasizes that narratives are not mere recounts of events, but manifestations of deeper psychological and cultural truths. Rushdie promotes the idea of literature here as a space of exploring potentialities and complexities, asserting that stories serve actually as a medium for expressing and confronting the hopes and fears of society. Rusty's work are significantly influenced contemporary literature and post-colonial discourse. His innovative use of magical realism and exploration of global themes have earned him a prominent place in literary studies, while his works continue to provoke a lot of discussion and debate on the issues of both cultural and political relevance. So this was the second case study on Rusty. The third one and the last one is on Derek Walcott. We are going to study Derek Walcott, I think, on day 6 or 7. Let's talk about the biographical background of Walcott. Walcott was born in 1930, and he passed away in 2017. He was a Saint Lucian poet and a playwright, and he was renowned for his exploration of Caribbean identity, history, and culture. His work often reflects the complex interplay between Caribbean heritage and colonial legacies. His major works were Omeros, or was this one of his work? Dream on Monkey Mountain. These are some of his beautiful work. Uh, so Omeros was, if I fairly remember, that was written in 1990, which is an epic poem that draws on the traditions, Caribbean traditions, to explore the Caribbean experiences. The poem weaves together the lives of its characters with themes from Caribbean history, mythology, and landscape. Some of the themes which are involved in the poem are the cultural synthesis. The poem, it reflects the blending of African, European, and indigenous influences in Caribbean culture, illustrating the process of cultural hybridity. Historical memory, Walcott's uh, work mostly engages historical memory also as one of the major themes, which talks about the colonialism and the slavery, offering a poetic reflection on Caribbean's past and present. The Caribbean landscape also serves as a backdrop for the exploration of personal and collective identities that emphasizes the connection between place and self. This is the themes that we are talking about. If we talk about the literary techniques that Walcott generally used to employ, it was mostly in the form of epic to address the contemporary themes, blending classic literary tradition with Caribbean cultural elements. Most of the imagery and symbolism that the poem uses is based on Caribbean landscape and cultural heritage, creating a rich and evocative narrative. I'll try to share a few lines from the poem and try to imagine what he is trying to speak on the lines. The sea is history. I do not have to look far for the past. It is right there, in the waves that break against my shores. History is not just in books, but in the very land and water around us. I'll repeat. The sea is history. I do not have to look far for the past. It is right there, in the waves that break against my shores. History is not just in books, but in the very land and water around us. This excerpt underscores what Walcott has to speak through his theme of history being embedded in the Caribbean landscape and cultural memory. The sea here symbolizes the continuity and presence of history, suggesting that historical experiences are deeply ingrained in the natural environment and daily life. Walcott's use of the sea as a metaphor reflects his view that history is lived and experienced directly rather than being solely a matter of written records. The poet here promotes the idea that history and cultural identity are inseparable from the natural environment. By integrating historical themes with the Caribbean landscape, he emphasizes the importance of recognizing and understanding the past through both physical and cultural contexts. I'll read one more line here. The Caribbean is not merely a place but a mosaic of stories and histories where every wave carries the echoes of our ancestors' struggles and dreams. Now, if you focus on this line, it reflects the poet's view of the Caribbean as a complex tapestry of historical and cultural narrative. The sea serves as a metaphor for the accumulation of collective memory and heritage, while at the same time it links past struggles with present experiences. Walcott's imagery emphasizes the interconnectedness of personal and collective histories. Walcott promotes the idea of Caribbean as a living repository of historical and cultural narratives. By using the sea as a metaphor, he highlights the importance of understanding and embracing the region's diverse heritage. One more line. In every shadow of the night, the island speaks. It whispers are the voices of the past, reminding us of who we are and where we come from. This passage deals with the idea that the Caribbean landscape is imbued with historical significance. The poet here suggests that the natural environment carries the weight of historical memory and cultural identity, and that these whispers connect individuals to their heritage. Walcott promotes the theme of historical memory embedded in the natural environment here by portraying the island as a dreaming or a living entity with its own voice. He underscores the significance of place in shaping cultural and personal identity. He wrote Dream on Monkey Mountain in 1970, and focusing on the summary, the play also explores the themes of identity, colonialism, and cultural conflict to the story of a Caribbean man who dreams for a better world. The play combines elements of folklore, Caribbean folklore, with modern dramatic techniques. The play critiques the lingering effects of colonialism on Caribbean society, highlighting the issues of power, identity, and social change. Folklore and tradition is also another theme here. Walcott incorporates Caribbean folklore and mythology to create a narrative that reflects the cultural richness of the region. Some of the literary techniques that Walcott uses are the dramatic techniques that blends traditional Caribbean performance style with modern theoretical forms. The use of symbolism is also here, the allegory that enriches the play's exploration of cultural and political themes. Let's read one line here from the play. The Monkey Mountain is not just a place, but a symbol of the dreams we hold and the realities we confront. It is where our aspirations meet our limitations. This line uses the metaphor of Monkey Mountain to symbolize the interplay between dreams and reality in Caribbean society. The mountain represents both the aspirations of the characters and the constraints imposed by the circumstances. Walcott wants to promote the exploration of dreams and realities, emphasizing the tension between aspirations and limitations in the Caribbean context. This thematic focus encourages a deeper understanding of personal and collective struggles within a post colonial framework. Derek Walcott's contribution in new literature to English have been widely recognized because they're profound. The works are actually profoundly engaged with their Caribbean identity and history. This language is also innovative and It influences both Caribbean literature and global literary studies, making him one of the key figures in the exploration of post-colonial and cultural themes. So these are some of the case studies that I thought of discussing for all of you to understand. So we talked about the major works. I'll do a quick summary in a while. I'll brief down that. So before we actually proceed to whatever we studied or whatever we understood under the introduction part as the key aspects of the the subject, the new literatures in English. Some of the key aspects, quickly, I will just try to recapitulate. The first thing is the diversity of voices. Here, writers are from various regions outside the traditional English speaking world, mostly from the Africa, Asia, Caribbean, Pacific. Now, these writers they bring cultural, historical, and social experiences, making their field highly diverse. Under these diversity of voices, mostly literature from Africa and yes, Africa and Caribbean, they reflect the specific histories, culture. In fact, all of them, but mostly them, the specific histories, culture, and the post-colonial experiences of these regions. For example, African literature might sometimes focus on themes like tribal conflicts, the impact of European colonization, struggle for independence. The diversity of these voices also challenge the Western literary traditions by introducing new cultural narratives and values and worldviews. Caribbean literature that blends African, European, and indigenous culture. So these are all hybrid identities. So I'm just trying to give you the key aspects of the today's introduction. Now, if you talk about the post-colonial themes, they are the central to the new literatures in English, as many of the writers from former colonies they try to focus on the legacy of the colonialism. Now, these work they examine the social, political, and the psychological impact of colonialization, including the loss of cultural identity, sometimes imposition of foreign values, sometimes exploitation of native population. We talked about Things Fall Apart, which is a classic example, Chinua Achebe's, that depicts the disintegration of Igbo society under British colonial rule. There is post colonial literature also, which frequently focuses on the struggle for independence that we are going to study tomorrow and the challenges of nation building. Gig was, thing was a grain of wheat. Tomorrow we will be studying that. Explores the complexities of the Kenyan struggle here for independence from the British rule. This highlights the personal and the national conflicts that arise in the process. Then there is hybridity and cultural conflict. The writers here try to explore the hybrid identities that emerge from the mixing of indigenous and colonial cultures. This hybridity can sometimes lead to internal and external conflicts also. We discussed about the case study of Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children, where the protagonist he tries to embody the contradiction of post-colonial India. Talking about the language, here the language actually plays a critical role in the new literatures in English, as it is both a tool for colonial oppression and a means for resistance and self-expression. Many colonial writers they grapple with the legacy of writing in the language of their colonizers. While some view English as a colonial imposition, others see it as a means of reaching a global audience. For example, um, um I don't remember exactly the name, but then yes, but for some writers they wrote first in English, but they later they switched it to their native their own language to reclaim their own cultural identity. So there is this cultural colonial language versus the indigenous language also. You'll come to see code switching is also one of the characteristics as a key aspect. Like new literatures in English, they often feature multilingualism. They reflect the linguistic realities of post colonial societies. They blend languages to serve to assert cultural identity. For example, the Lonely Launderers, right now remember, it's written in Caribbean dialect in the native voice, challenges the standard English and conveys the lived experiences there of the Caribbean immigrants in London. Now, writers like Kamau Brathwaite, they emphasize the importance of reclaiming language as a means of cultural resistance. In his poetry, the poet uses Caribbean Creole to assert the value of indigenous language. So, language happens to be another key aspect. The next key aspect here is globalization, which has a profound impact on new literatures in English, as it has actually facilitated the movement of people, their ideas, and cultures across borders, leading to new forms of cultural exchange and hybridity. There was diaspora and migration also. Many post colonial writers are a part of diasporic communities, living and writing outside their countries of origin. Their works often explore the experiences of migration, displacement, and search for identity. Jhumpa Lahiri is one of the, I just forgot to mention that when as a case study, but no problem, I just remembered it. Jhumpa Lahiri is the namesake, for instance, that how that examines the challenges of cultural assimilation faced by the Bengali family in the United States. So that's on diaspora and migration under globalization as the key concept. Then there is transnationalism, globalization that um, leads to the emergence of transnational identities where individuals belong to multiple cultures and navigate the complexities of living between the worlds. Some of the writers like Zadie Smith, they explore these transnational identities as seen in her novel White Teeth. So that is one of the novel which portrays the lives of multicultural families in London. So this is also again under globalization, cultural homogenization and cultural diversity. So there is globalization, which is often a result in the tension between a there is often a tension between the spread of Western culture and the preservation of cultural diversity. So new literatures in English frequently engages with this tension, advocating for the recognition and celebration of diverse cultural identities. The last one is literary styles. Literary styles in new literature in English. This is as diverse as the voices that they represent. There are different authors, different writers, so different voices. So literary styles are also different. So let's take for example oral traditions. I talked about one in one of the examples where there is more of storytelling. Many post colonial writers draw oral traditions, incorporating elements of storytelling, folklore, and myth in their work. Now, this serves to preserve indigenous culture. So, because they have made it a tradition of storytelling and talking about their own culture, they resist the dominance of the Western literary forms. One more example I can give you here under oral tradition is Wolsoinka's Death and the King's Horseman, which integrates the Yoruba oral tradition with Western dramatic forms. Then we come to another literary style which is called as magical realism. We talked about it, Rusty's. So this is one of the, again the notable style in new literature in English, which blends the supernatural with the mundane, reflecting the complex realities of post-colonial societies. There is Gabriel Gracia's Marquez 100 Years of Solitude. This is one of the prominent example, though the style is also evident in African, Caribbean, and South Asian literatures. Under literary styles, there is one more post-colonial writers which often experiment is the narrative experimentation, using a non-linear timeline, multiple perspectives, fragmented narratives to reflect the disjointed nature of post-colonial experiences. For example, mm, Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. It is one of the best example of the fragmented narrative that mirrors the fractured lives of the characters. And the last part, mostly if we talk about the literary styles, is the resistance to Western norms. New literature in English frequently challenges Western literary norms by foregrounding indigenous forms of expression and resisting the imposition of Western standards. Now, this resistance can be seen in the use of local languages, oral traditions, and non Western narrative techniques. So these are some of the key concepts of um, the new literatures in English. Now, they in overall, all the authors or writers, they represent a rich and a diverse field of literary production that often challenge the traditional Western literary canons and provide alternative perspective on global experiences. So you have to study all of their work under new literature of English in a very fresh perspective and try to understand the the idea of expression and how important actually they talk about self representation as the core. Now these literatures, they indeed offer invaluable insights into the complexities of post colonial identities and globalization, ongoing struggles for cultural linguistic autonomy. Their language is innovative, narrative styles are innovative, thematic explorations is innovative. Now these literatures, they continue to expand and enrich in the entire global literary landscape. So this was just an introduction today. Tomorrow, I think we have to study a grain of wheat. Yeah, grain of wheat we will be studying tomorrow. This is again a significant African literature work. Yes, yes, people. So, is there anything you would want to express uh, regarding the new literature introduction part? We did two case studies, two different writers. Okay, I get to see there are some messages here which I had skipped earlier, maybe for some reason. Yes, so I think there is a change in the schedule, which ought to start in September. We are starting it today onwards, 20th. Regarding assignments, I think the coordinator will only give you the correct message for that. Yeah, anything you would want to talk about?
Ma'am, Annie here. Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 Annie, please tell me.
Ma'am, just a doubt that what you're discussing so far, is it MEG-5? Because the schedule says it is 5 today.
Mm, give me a second.
Because otherwise I'll be attending, which I'm not, I mean, I'm only in like 5, 10, 7, and 14.
Okay, just a second. So this is new literatures in English, and this one is Meg.
Is it? Is
Meg.
it? Yeah,
Yes,
I
it
know.
is Meg and PGDNLEG.
No, no, no. The
Meg
number
8. Meg
8,
8. Yes.
okay, ma'am, because the schedule does not say 8. What mail we got does not say it is 8 today, it is 5.
Okay, I think they have changed the schedule and maybe you can just talk to them regarding the change schedule.
We have to talk to them because only mail we will receive usually. Today I haven't received any latest changes. That's why I kept on asking in the chat box.
Oh,
Whether,
fine. I think I just somehow missed it. Okay, I get to see it.
so will you be able to?
Uh, okay, give me some time. Maybe I'll just quickly get back. I'll just quickly make them a call.
Yeah, because
And
if they post the change schedule, then it will be better for everyone. No, otherwise, see,
yes,
I
yes,
don't.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
thank
So
you.
they have changed it, but they have not somehow
Yeah, they have
shared it.
not mailed it. Yeah,
No
thank,
problem, no problem.
thank you.
I'll just quickly get back.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, I think they're not picking up the call. Maybe they're not picking up the call. So right now, I just know that the time has or the day has been changed. The subject is right now MEG-8, so it's going to continue for the next 8 to 10 days.
Ma'am, then tomorrow also it will be MEG-8. Am I
Yes,
correct?
yes, yes, yes. Six,
So
it's going to begin. Yes.
then, ma'am, then only if you, I mean, whoever is responsible for communicating with
Yeah,
the
I was actually trying to reach him, but he's not picking my call up.
otherwise we
So
have no idea when he's going to.
I get it. I get it. I would definitely ask him to give all of you some kind of a communication so that you are aware.
Thank you. So I leave this week now.
Okay. But
Hello.
yeah, Keshav, tell me.
Ma'am, what we discussed today,
Mm-hmm.
that is a MEG 8 Unit 1. Na?
No, no, no. That is just an introduction. Unit one introduction part only.
Okay. So
Introduction
tomorrow,
to yes.
what we will discuss tomorrow?
Tomorrow we are going to start with day two. We are going to discuss on the grain of wheat. We are going to pick plays and poems and novels from the new literatures of English from tomorrow onwards till day 8, and we are going to focus on each of them in details. Am I
Okay,
clear?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So that is from block 1. Am I right?
Block 1. Yes, block 1. Grain of wheat, you can just have a look from block 1 or 2 maybe, because block 1 is over today. Today was an introduction.
Ma'am, then in that case, if it is going to be delayed for the other MEGs, ma'am, then it will be very difficult for us to finish the assignments because we have to post it, send it
Uh,
before September 30th. So if they are going to delay beyond September 15th, then it's
I'm
very
sure because if they have changed the schedule, they're definitely going to do something for that. So I would urge all of you to please wait, to wait so that if the right person talks to me, whatever communication I have, whatever information I have, I will be giving you tomorrow in the class.
yeah. Because I was hoping after attending these classes, I will get an idea and start the assignment. But
Hmm. So, but
Ma'am,
Annie, are you? Yes, Keshav. Just a second. Annie, are you from? Did you choose MEG 8?
No, I never chose 8. I chose 5, 7, 10, 14.
Okay. So this subject is MEG 8.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was trying to ask in the chat, but nobody was responding.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
what I'm trying to ask is if my subjects are not going to be in the latest, I mean in the coming days in August, if it is going to be September late, then it will be delayed for completing the assignment. So as soon as possible, if they send the assignment, it will be very nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because I had tried, talking to the person. He's not picking the call. Maybe the office is closed now.
Yes.
So I can only get back to you tomorrow with the communication. Whatever communication I'll have, I'll share it with you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Catch up later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie. Yes, Keshav.
ma'am, what we will discuss tomorrow, that is a gain of wheat, na?
A grain of wheat. Yes.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Yes. So I want all of you, if you have materials already for grain of wheat, just give a read. Just understand the characters, just understand the plot, and we will discuss about more of them in more details in tomorrow's class.
Looking forward to receive some information regarding the other schedules, ma'am. MEG 5, 7, 10, and
Uh,
14.
Joshna, I am so
Yeah.
sorry, but I am actually not the right person to give you, the information regarding the other subjects. I was
Yeah.
only concerned for MEG, but because this
Mm-hmm.
is a concern for most of you,
Yeah.
I'll definitely
Please,
try my
please.
best. Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, ma'am.
May, maybe Lee? Yeah.
Lee, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. Definitely. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.